The mirror blinked, not with light, not with a reflection shifting because of a passing shadow. It blinked the way a living eye would, slowly, deliberately, as though something hidden behind the glass had just awakened and noticed it was being watched. Elias froze halfway across the abandoned hallway. The old manor had been empty for more than a century. At least, that was what every map, every local story, and every warning sign claimed. Children dared each other to reach the front gate. Adults avoided speaking about the place after sunset. Travelers hurried past without looking through the broken windows. Only Elias had decided to step inside. He wasn't searching for ghosts. He was searching for silence. The world beyond the cracked stone walls had become unbearably loud. Endless expectations, endless failures, endless reminders that he never seemed to belong anywhere for very long. Wandering through forgotten ruins with a camera had become the only thing that made sense anymore. Forgotten places never judged anyone. They simply waited. His flashlight drifted across faded portraits whose painted eyes had peeled away with time. Dust floated through the air like tiny silver stars. The house groaned. Somewhere above him, wood creaked. Nothing unusual. Old buildings breathed. At least, that was what he told himself. Then he heard footsteps. 1, 2, 3, perfectly synchronized with his own. He stopped. The footsteps continued. One more, then another, coming from somewhere deeper inside the mansion. His pulse quickened. Hello? Silence. He raised the flashlight toward the darkness. Nothing, only endless corridors disappearing into blackness. He laughed nervously. Very funny? No answer. Just as he turned to leave, something glimmered at the end of the hall. A mirror. It stood alone against the wall, impossibly untouched by decay. Everything around it had surrendered to time. The wallpaper had fallen apart. The wooden floor had cracked. The ceiling leaked through broken beams. Yet the mirror looked new. Its silver frame curled with intricate vines and strange flowers that seemed almost alive beneath the beam of his flashlight. No dust, no scratches, no fingerprints. It reflected the hallway with impossible clarity. Elias slowly approached. Every instinct told him to walk away. Instead, curiosity pulled him closer. The reflection copied every movement. Almost. Something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it. His reflection blinked a fraction of a second too late. So little that he wondered if exhaustion had tricked his eyes. He leaned closer. The reflection leaned closer. His breathing echoed softly. The mirror remained perfectly still. Then his reflection smiled. Elias hadn't. Every muscle in his face went cold. His own mouth remained frozen in confusion while the version inside the mirror stretched into the faintest grin. Not evil, not friendly, knowing, as though it had waited years for this exact moment. Elias stumbled backward. The reflection remained standing. It didn't move. It simply watched him. The smile slowly faded. Then it raised one finger, not toward him, toward something behind itself. Elias instinctively turned around. The hallway behind him was empty. When he looked back, everything was normal again. The reflection copied him perfectly. No smile, no delay, no strange gestures. He stared for nearly a minute. Nothing happened. "You've officially lost your mind," he whispered. His voice sounded smaller than it should have. The silence surrounding the mirror felt strangely heavy, as if sound itself refused to stay near it. Eventually, he forced himself to step away. The moment he turned his back, the whisper arrived. "So close, It wasn't behind him, it wasn't ahead, it came from inside the glass. He spun around. The mirror reflected an empty hallway. Elias was gone. His own reflection had vanished. Only the corridor remained. Cold panic flooded his chest. He stepped sideways. Nothing. He waved his arms. Still nothing. Then, slowly, someone walked into the reflection. It was him, except older. His clothes were torn. Dark scratches crossed his face. One eye carried a long scar. His shoulders were heavier. His expression held the exhaustion of someone who had survived far too much. The older Elias looked directly at him, then placed both hands against the inside of the mirror. His lips moved. No sound emerged. Again. Slower. 3 words. Don't trust me. The glass rippled. The older Elias slammed both fists against it, not trying to escape, trying to warn him. A deafening crack exploded through the hallway. Elias jumped back. The mirror shattered. Thousands of silver fragments burst across the floor. The lights from his flashlight scattered through every broken piece. Silence returned. His breathing became the only sound left. He stood frozen for several seconds before kneeling beside the shattered frame. Every shard reflected a different version of the hallway. One showed daylight outside. Another reflected a room that didn't exist. Another showed endless darkness. One tiny fragment reflected a child standing behind him. He turned instantly. Nothing. When he looked back, the child remained inside the shard, watching, smiling. Then the reflection dissolved into ordinary glass. His phone vibrated. The sudden sound nearly made him drop it. No signal, no notifications. Only the battery had suddenly dropped from 80% to 8. Impossible. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. I've seen enough. He hurried toward the entrance, except the entrance wasn't there. The front door had disappeared. In its place stretched another corridor, longer, older, lined with dozens of mirrors, each one different. Tall mirrors, round mirrors, cracked mirrors, golden mirrors, black mirrors that reflected nothing at all. He didn't remember seeing any of them. He slowly backed away. Another hallway, more mirrors. Every direction now led to reflections. The manor had changed, or perhaps it had finally revealed itself. He forced himself to stay calm. There has to be another exit. He chose the corridor to his left. As he passed the first mirror, his reflection hesitated, just for one step, then caught up. Second mirror, the reflection never blinked. Third mirror, the reflection looked older. Fourth mirror, his reflection carried blood across one sleeve. Fifth mirror, no reflection at all, only darkness stretching infinitely beyond the glass. He refused to stop walking. The faster he moved, the stranger the mirrors became. Some reflected empty hallways. Some reflected burning forests. One reflected a city floating upside down beneath a crimson sky. Another showed oceans suspended above mountains. Every impossible world lasted only an instant before becoming ordinary again. Or perhaps ordinary for the mirror, not for him. Finally, the corridor ended at an enormous circular chamber. Hundreds of mirrors covered every wall from floor to ceiling. Thousands of reflections stared back. Every version of Elias looked different. Young, old, injured, laughing, crying, armored, blind. Some wore crowns, some wore chains. One version appeared to be made entirely of shadow. None of them copied his movements. They watched him together, perfectly still. His heartbeat echoed through the room. Then every reflection slowly turned their heads toward the largest mirror standing at the center of the chamber. Unlike the others, this mirror reflected nothing. Not the room, not Elias, only swirling darkness. A voice emerged from inside, calm, ancient, patient. You finally found the doorway. The darkness moved. Two pale hands pressed gently against the opposite side of the glass, not trying to break through, waiting, as though whoever or whatever stood beyond already knew that sooner or later Elias would reach out first. Elias did not move. Every instinct screamed for him to run, yet every exit behind him had become another corridor of impossible reflections. The room itself seemed to breathe with slow, invisible lungs. Hundreds of mirrors surrounded him, each holding a different version of his face, yet not one of them copied the fear spreading across his own. The ancient voice spoke again. You are wondering which world is real? The darkness inside the central mirror rippled like black water disturbed by unseen rain. The answer is simpler than you think. A pause. And far more terrible. Elias swallowed hard. What are you? For several long seconds, nothing answered. Instead, one reflection lifted a hand. Another knelt. A third slowly backed away as though terrified of the mirror at the center. Only then did the voice return. I am what remains when every choice creates another path. The sentence made no sense, yet somehow it felt older than language itself. Elias stepped closer despite himself. The surface of the mirror remained perfectly black. No reflection, no light, only endless depth. What do you want from me? A faint sound echoed beyond the glass. Not words. Footsteps. Someone was approaching from the opposite side. Slowly, patiently, with every step, the room grew colder. The mirrors began to fog. Thin white frost spread across their surfaces. Then the footsteps stopped. A hand emerged from the darkness. Human, scarred, trembling. It pressed against the inside of the glass. Another hand followed, then a face. The older Elias. The same scar crossing one eye. The same torn clothes. The same exhausted expression. This time, sound crossed the barrier. Don't listen to it. His voice was weak, as though spoken after years without air. The ancient voice laughed, not loudly, not cruelly, simply with endless certainty. He says that every time. The older Elias slammed both palms against the mirror. Because every time you believe it, his eyes filled with desperation, I stay trapped. Elias looked between the two. His heart pounded harder than ever. What is happening? The older version inhaled sharply. There isn't only one world. The mirrors surrounding them shimmered. Each reflection transformed. Entire landscapes unfolded within the glass. Kingdoms buried beneath oceans. Cities built inside giant trees. Frozen deserts beneath green skies. Worlds where stars floated only a few feet above the ground. Worlds where no sun had ever existed. Thousands, millions. Every reflection revealed another reality. The older Elias continued. Every decision ever made creates another road. You stayed home. You entered the manor. You turned left. You turned right. You survived. You died. Every possibility continues somewhere. Elias slowly turned in a circle. The mirrors no longer showed reflections. They showed lives, entire histories, children growing old, wars beginning, empires collapsing, all because of tiny choices made by people who never realized another version of themselves had walked a different path. The mirrors connect them, the older Elias whispered. They always have. The ancient voice interrupted, but balance requires exchange. Silence swallowed the chamber. The older Elias closed his eyes. He already knew what would come next. The voice continued, "No world may exist without sacrifice. Whenever a doorway opens, someone remains behind." The words struck Elias like ice. He looked directly at his older self. "You mean—" The older Elias nodded. "I came here years ago. I thought I could save someone. I believed I could leave whenever I wanted." A bitter smile crossed his face. "I was wrong." The mirrors surrounding them suddenly flashed. Images exploded across every surface. The older Elias wandering endless halls, searching, calling for help, watching seasons pass in worlds he could never enter, meeting countless alternate versions of himself, some kind, some broken, some dangerous, some completely insane. Each had become trapped by trying to save another. Each believed they would be the last. Each failed. The images vanished. Only silence remained. Elias whispered, "How long?" The older version stared into the darkness. "I stopped counting." The answer frightened him more than any number could have. Then another voice echoed from somewhere behind. "You shouldn't trust him." Elias spun around. One of the mirrors now reflected a young woman wearing dark armor covered with silver symbols. She wasn't inside the chamber. She stood within another world. Rain poured behind her beneath violet clouds. She looked directly into Elias's eyes. He lies because he remembers only his ending. Before Elias could respond, another mirror awakened. An elderly man surrounded by floating lanterns shook his head. "No, the guardian lies." A child appeared inside another mirror. "They both lie." Another, another. Soon dozens of mirrors spoke at once. Every reflection offered a different truth. Destroy the mirrors. Step inside. Never touch the glass. Break the frame. Find the first doorway. Trust no reflection. Trust only reflections. The chamber erupted into endless voices. Every sentence contradicted the last. Elias covered his ears. The noise only grew louder. Then everything stopped. Every mirror became silent, all except one, the smallest mirror in the room. It barely reached his knees. Inside stood a little boy no older than 8. He held a wooden toy shaped like a bird. Unlike every other reflection, he looked frightened, not manipulative, not mysterious, simply afraid. "They're forgetting." His tiny voice barely carried across the glass. Elias knelt. "Forgetting what?" The child looked over his shoulder. Something enormous moved behind him, beneath thick gray fog. He quickly turned back. The worlds aren't separating anymore. Cracks spread across the mirror, tiny at first, then faster. If nobody closes the doorway, the cracks reach the edges. Every world becomes one. The mirror exploded. Glass scattered across the chamber. The child vanished. At that exact moment, the manor shook. Not a gentle vibration, a violent earthquake. Ceiling stones crashed onto the floor. Dust filled the air. Several mirrors shattered instantly. As they broke, impossible things escaped. Birds made of glowing crystal, black snow, ash that floated upward instead of down, water that hung motionless in midair. A wolf with 6 eyes leaped from one broken mirror before dissolving into smoke. The boundaries were failing. The older Elias shouted, "It's happening sooner than before." The ancient voice remained perfectly calm. "It has already begun." Darkness spread outward from the central mirror, not across the floor, across reality itself. The chamber walls twisted, gravity shifted. Some mirrors now stood sideways, others floated freely. The floor bent upward like soft fabric. Elias struggled to keep his balance. Then he saw them. People, dozens, hundreds, transparent figures wandering between mirrors. Some wore clothing from centuries past. Others carried technology he had never seen. Children, soldiers, artists, kings, every one of them slowly faded in and out like unfinished memories. "They're echoes," whispered the older Elias. "They no longer belong anywhere." One echo stopped before Elias, a woman carrying an infant. She smiled sadly, then disappeared forever. More vanished, one after another, entire lives erased without a sound. Elias felt something inside him break. "They're dying." No. The older Elias looked away. Worse. "They're being forgotten." The sentence echoed through the chamber, as though reality itself understood its meaning. The ancient voice answered almost gently, "When worlds merge, only one memory survives. The others become silence." Elias clenched his fists. "There has to be another way." "There always is." The voice sounded almost amused. "But another way always demands another price." Suddenly, every remaining mirror reflected the exact same scene. A massive tower standing beneath a sky with 3 moons. At its summit burned a single white flame. The older Elias stared at it with horror. No, the guardian had found it. Elias looked between the mirrors. "What is that place?" The older version whispered, as though speaking its name might awaken it. "The Origin Tower. The first mirror. The place where every world was born." Lightning split every reflected sky simultaneously. The white flame flickered. For the first time, fear entered the ancient voice. "They are coming." The chamber darkened. Far away, inside every mirror, identical silhouettes appeared along the horizon. Tall, motionless, featureless, watching, not one, thousands, each carrying an enormous black mirror upon its back. None had faces, yet Elias felt every one of them looking directly at him. The older Elias stepped away from the glass. His expression changed from desperation to certainty. "They finally found your world." The first faceless figure took a single step forward. Then every other figure did the same. Thousands of worlds, thousands of silent walkers, all advancing together toward the same destination, toward the same mirror, toward Elias. The first impact came without sound. One of the towering, faceless figures reached the edge of its own world and pressed the enormous black mirror it carried against the invisible barrier separating realities. The glass in Elias's chamber trembled. A hairline crack appeared across the central mirror, then another, then hundreds. The silence became unbearable. No explosion, no roar, only the quiet certainty of something ancient finally reaching its destination. The older Elias stepped away from the glass. His exhausted eyes hardened. "There isn't much time now." Elias stared at the countless reflections. "They're coming here?" The older man shook his head. "They're coming everywhere." Every mirror surrounding them showed the same impossible march. Across frozen oceans, through burning forests, over floating cities, across deserts, where stars lay buried beneath black sand. The faceless beings walked with identical rhythm. Never faster, never slower. They carried no weapons. They made no threats. Yet every world they entered slowly dimmed behind them, as though reality itself surrendered to their presence. The ancient voice echoed through the chamber. "They are the collectors. They do not conquer. They restore." Elias frowned. "Restore what?" "The first world." The words settled like stone. Long before questions could form, the walls around them dissolved into light. The chamber disappeared. Elias no longer stood inside the manor. He stood within an endless void filled with billions of floating mirrors. Each reflected an entire universe. Galaxies drifted inside pieces of glass no larger than his hand. Entire civilizations flickered like candle flames. Above them all floated a mirror unlike any other. It was unimaginably vast. Its frame disappeared beyond sight. Unlike every other mirror, it was broken. A single crack divided it from top to bottom. The ancient voice became clearer than ever. In the beginning, there was only one world. Images unfolded around Elias. A peaceful land stretching beneath endless skies, mountains covered in silver forests, rivers glowing beneath moonlight, people from every corner of existence living together. No borders, no separate realities, no impossible worlds, just one. Then came fear. People wished to undo mistakes, to save loved ones, to choose different paths, to escape regret. So they built the first mirror, not to predict the future, to create another possibility. Every choice formed another world. Every regret became another chance. Every hope became another reality. The mirror granted every path, until there were too many. The first world fractured. Its single reflection shattered into countless universes. The enormous crack across the ancient mirror spread outward. Billions of smaller mirrors burst into existence. Every world, every life, every version, born from one impossible wish. The vision faded. Elias whispered, "So we're all fragments." "Yes." "And the collectors?" "They seek to heal what was broken." The older Elias laughed bitterly. "Heal?" His scarred face twisted with disbelief. "Call it what it really is. Erasing." The ancient voice did not deny it. If every reflection becomes one again, only one history remains. Elias looked across the endless mirrors. Children laughing, families embracing, friends reuniting, people mourning, dreaming, failing, beginning again. Every universe carried lives that believed themselves unique. None knew another version existed. How could one history be chosen over all the others? The older Elias suddenly reached through the glass. For the first time, his hand crossed the barrier, only his fingertips. Blood ran from where reality resisted him. He forced a small object into Elias's palm. The wooden bird, the same toy carried by the frightened child. Elias stared at it. "It's a key." The older Elias nodded. "The first child carved it before the world separated. It remembers." "Remembers what?" "The original choice." The wooden bird felt strangely warm. Tiny glowing lines appeared across its surface. The wings slowly unfolded. Far above them, the enormous broken mirror answered. Its crack pulsed with white light. The collectors stopped walking. Every faceless head turned upward. For the first time, uncertainty spread through their perfect formation. The ancient voice spoke sharply. "Do not awaken the memory." Too late. The bird began to sing, not with sound, with memories. They flooded through Elias faster than thought. He saw the first child standing before the first mirror. Not a king, not a sorcerer, only a frightened little boy who wanted one impossible thing. His sister was dying. He begged the mirror for another chance, just one. The mirror obeyed. A world appeared where she survived, then another where she recovered sooner, another where neither became ill, another where they never met, another where they were born centuries apart. Infinite compassion, infinite possibility, infinite consequences. The child had not shattered reality through greed. He had shattered it through love. Tears filled Elias's eyes. The ancient voice softened. Every beautiful thing carries a cost. The memory ended. The wooden bird became still. The older Elias smiled for the first time, not with hope, with understanding. You know now. Elias nodded, slowly. There was never supposed to be only one ending. The ancient voice hesitated for the first time. Silence lingered, then it answered. No, there wasn't. Elias looked toward the broken first mirror towering above existence itself. The collectors waited. The countless universes trembled. Everything depended on one decision. He could allow the collectors to merge every reality. Pain would disappear. Regret would disappear. Loss would disappear. So would individuality. Every person reduced to a single surviving version. Or he could preserve the fracture, protect every possibility, every joy, every sorrow, every imperfect life, even if the worlds remained forever unstable. He closed his hand around the wooden bird. I choose neither. The ancient voice became dangerously quiet. There is no third path. There is now. Elias walked toward the enormous first mirror. With every step, countless versions of himself emerged from surrounding reflections. The armored Elias, the blind Elias, the laughing Elias, the old Elias, the child Elias, thousands, millions. Every possibility walked beside him. None spoke, none argued. They simply continued forward together. The collectors finally moved. Their endless march became a charge. Darkness poured across existence. The older Elias shouted, "Run!" Elias did not. He placed the wooden bird against the great crack. Nothing happened. For one terrifying second, nothing. Then the bird dissolved into pure white light, not repairing the crack, not destroying it, growing through it. Branches of radiant light spread across the broken mirror like the roots of an ancient tree. The crack transformed into something entirely new, a bridge. The impossible pressure holding realities apart vanished, not because the worlds merged, because they learned to touch without replacing one another. The mirrors changed, no longer prisons, no longer barriers, windows. For the first time since the first mirror shattered, worlds could see each other without consuming each other. The collector stopped. One by one, the faceless beings lowered the black mirrors from their backs. Their smooth faces slowly cracked. Light poured through. They were never monsters. They had been guardians trapped inside a single purpose for so long that they had forgotten why it existed. As the light escaped, each collector dissolved into thousands of glowing birds, wooden birds, the same shape as the child's carving. They scattered across every sky in every universe. The ancient voice faded, not in defeat, in peace. Balance was never separation. The central mirror became transparent. The older Elias stood smiling. The prison around him disappeared. He was finally free. For a brief moment, both versions of Elias stood face to face, without glass between them. The older one looked healthier now. The scar remained. The years remained. But the weight was gone. I wondered for so long which of us was the real one. Elias smiled. Does it matter? The older Elias looked toward the endless horizons where countless worlds now shimmered side by side. No, I don't think it ever did. His body slowly became light, not dying, returning. Every version of Elias across every reality began to glow. One after another they nodded to one another before fading into their own worlds, not erased, simply home. The abandoned manor reappeared around Elias. Morning sunlight streamed through broken windows. The dust floated peacefully in golden beams. The corridors were ordinary again. The impossible chamber had vanished. The endless mirrors were gone. Only one remained, the beautiful silver mirror standing quietly where he had first found it. This time it reflected him perfectly. No delays, no smiles, no hidden figures, just Elias. He turned to leave. Halfway through the hallway, something made him glance back one last time. The mirror was empty, not because it reflected nothing, because someone inside it had just walked away. Some people spend their entire lives wishing they could erase a painful choice, rewrite a mistake, or become a different version of themselves. But every joy, every scar, every success, and every regret shapes the person they become. Perfection is not found in a life without difficult decisions. It is found in accepting that every path carries both light and shadow. The strongest people are not those who never wish for another chance. They are those who learn to value the life they already have. Sometimes the greatest courage is not changing the past. It is choosing to embrace the imperfect story that made you who you are. If this story captured your imagination, there's much more to come. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new tale. Until next time, take care and keep wondering.